Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So it is slow cooker season and I thought I would show you how to make a fabulous dinner that I think is fantastic in the slow cooker. It's for my chicken cacciatore with polenta cakes with a little bit of Parmesan and rosemary, and the combination is just fantastic. Watch how easy this is. So the first thing you want to do is season your chicken. So I have 1.5 pounds of skinless, boneless chicken thighs. And I like to use the chicken thighs because I find that the chicken stays a lot more moist than if you're using chicken breasts. So just salt and pepper each one. Now we are gonna throw everything in the slow cooker, I promise, but I just wanna sear the chicken off first on each side just to lock in the flavor and get a nice little crust on it, because I find that that does two things. One, it prevents that kind of weird, like rubbery chicken that can happen sometimes in the slow cooker if you don't do that step first, if you just throw it all in. And two, I think it protects the chicken a bit more and prevents it from drying out because you've kind of got this nice protective sear on it. So it's not gonna take long, and I think it's a step worth doing. So I'm just gonna spray my pan with a little bit of avocado oil, and then once the pan is nice and hot, we're just going to sear the chicken. I was inspired to make this recipe by a meal we had this summer when we were in Italy, and we had a chicken cacciatore that had been simmering on the stove top for hours, and it fell off the bone, and the tomatoes were so mellow and delicious. And I just kept thinking, you have to be able to make this in the slow cooker. And I tried it when we got back, and I'm telling you, it's fantastic. If you don't have a slow cooker, you could do this on the stovetop. I would just proceed the way I'm doing it here, but let it simmer for at least 45 minutes, maybe an hour on low, just because it will take time for those tomatoes to cook down and mellow in flavor. If you cook it for only like 20 minutes or so, they're still gonna be pretty acidic. And that's what I love about the slow cooker, is it really mellows those tomatoes, but you don't have to be strapped to the cooktop to do so. Now, once the chicken is nice and browned like that and has a little bit of a crust on it, you are ready to give it a flip. There, beautiful. So you just want to cook it for 1 to 2 minutes on the other side. We're not looking for it to be cooked at this stage. You'll do that in the slow cooker. This is really more just about getting it nice and golden brown. So let's see. Just like that, perfect. All right, so we are just gonna take this chicken and put it in a bowl, and now everything's going in the slow cooker. So I have 2 15-ounce cans of diced tomatoes. You really wanna make sure you get the diced tomatoes as opposed to the crushed tomatoes or the pureed tomatoes, because the diced have these nice chunks. And that's really what you want, so that you don't end up with kind of like a cacciatore soup. Then you wanna add 3 tablespoons of tomato paste. And the tomato paste is just going to sweeten up our sauce a little bit and also make it a little bit thicker. And then for seasoning, we're gonna do a teaspoon of salt, 3 teaspoons of Italian seasoning, and then we also wanna add some freshly ground pepper, and of course some garlic. So you wanna have at least 2 good cloves of garlic. Here's a little tip for you, as tempting as it might be. Do not buy that garlic that is already peeled and is in the refrigerated section, because you're not supposed to refrigerate garlic. It really tones down the flavor. So I know it's a pain to peel the garlic, believe me. It's not my favorite chore either, but I do prefer the taste. You're gonna get a lot more bolder flavor out of the fresh garlic than you would with something that's already peeled and refrigerated. Really, the best way to store your garlic is in a little crock like this that sits out at room temperature and has little holes so it can breathe. You'll just end up getting the best flavor that way. All right, then in goes the chicken. Go ahead and bury it in the sauce, so just to make sure that it's getting nice and covered. And then any drippings that's left over in the bowl, make sure to add that too, because that is going to be great flavor. Now for the veggies, you want to do a cup of yellow onion that has just been cut into little half moons, nice and thin, like that. Then you also want to add a cup of red peppers as well, and a cup of green peppers. Now at this point, some people do like to add mushrooms. So if you're a mushroom lover, you could add about a half a cup, 3/4 of a cup of quartered mushrooms. I find, and I am a mushroom lover, but I find they get a little slimy. I don't know, I wasn't really loving the texture. I tried it with the mushrooms and I think it's better without. I prefer to add the olives, but if we do that now, our cacciatore is going to be really salty as it simmers for 5 hours, so we don't want to do that. We're gonna add the olives about a half hour or so before it's done, so at the 4-hour, 30-minute mark. That's perfect. All right, at this stage, you wanna make sure that all the chicken and the vegetables is being covered with that tomato sauce, and it might look really thick right now, and you may wonder how this is ever gonna come together. But after 5 hours simmering away on high, all of the juices from the vegetables will start to release, and the juice from the chicken, and it'll turn into this really lovely concoction. But before we set it to simmer, we're gonna add one more thing, which is a little splash of white wine. Now, if you don't drink, you could totally leave it out and use chicken broth instead, but I do think at least a quarter of a cup is a good thing to add, just to give it a little head start with the sauciness and to give it a little bit more flavor. All right, we are ready to go. You wanna put the top on the slow cooker, set it on high for 5 hours, or you can also set it on low for anywhere from 6 to 8 hours. So once your chicken cacciatore is done, you could set it on low and then you can prep the polenta cakes. So this is really easy to do. You could buy loose polenta and cook it on the stovetop. That's actually how we had it in Italy. But for some reason, I've had a really hard time finding that here. I don't know why. Usually I can find it, but I decided to buy the cooked polenta instead. So if you can't find the loose, you can get something that looks like this. It's already cooked and it's in a roll. All you have to do is heat it up and you can just slice it. Now, the thing to know is when you slice it, a lot of water is going to come out of it because I guess it's just the moisture in how it's packed, and you want to dry that off. So I just cut off the ends like so. You can save the polenta that comes out of here, but see all this water that just came out? You do want to dry that off, and then you can also pat down the roll as well. I find it's easiest to cut it with a bread knife or any kind of knife that's serrated, and then you want to cut about 3/4 of an inch thick cakes. And what we're gonna do is heat this up in a pan with some olive oil and season with rosemary and salt and pepper and Parmesan cheese. And it is like the most elegant little side dish that takes hardly any time. And you could get this part done ahead of time as well. I'm gonna show you that in a minute. So first, let's get this going in the olive oil. All right, so you wanna get your pan on a medium-high flame. Then you wanna add a little drizzle of olive oil. Once your pan is hot, you can go ahead and add the little polenta slices in there. The combination of the tomatoes and the chicken and the peppers is such a great flavor with the polenta. I just think it's a great match. If you don't love polenta, you could also serve the chicken cacciatore over some angel hair pasta, mashed potatoes, some rice. Then we want to cover this so that the polenta has a chance to warm all the way through and soften. Only takes just a few minutes. Okay, then you can check it. And basically what you're looking for is the bottom will start to become a darker yellow and it'll look sort of toasty and cooked through. So you can give it a little flip. You do want to use a non-stick pan because this polenta can get pretty sticky, and you want to make sure you have enough olive oil in the pan as well. And then we're going to cover it and go for a few minutes on the other side. Oh, these look so delicious. They're really soft and a little bit crispy on top, and these are going to be perfect with our chicken cacciatore. So go ahead and put them in a bowl like so. The polenta is pretty filling, so I usually factor 2 per person. Then I like to just sprinkle a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper, just to give it a little flavor. Then a little bit of Parmesan cheese, freshly grated, right on top, and it will start to melt into the polenta. It's really good. At this stage, you could let it cool down, pop it in the refrigerator, and then moments before you plan to serve your chicken cacciatore, just pop it in the microwave. When it reheats, it will remain soft. If you just cut it and put it in the microwave, I don't think you get the same flavor or texture. And then you can always add some freshly grated Parmesan cheese on top because it will melt when it goes in the microwave. Okay, and a little bit of freshly chopped rosemary on top. Doesn't that look delicious? Once the 5 hours is up, I want you to do 3 things, okay? Number 1, give it a stir. All of the vegetables would have broken down. I usually go in with a wooden spoon just to break up the chicken so it's in bite-sized pieces because remember we put the whole thigh in there. But really the heat has a way of breaking it down almost by itself. So you may not need to do much of that. Then you want to add the olives. I'm using Kalamata olives and I've split them in half, just because I think they're a little bit easier to eat that way and you don't get such a big flavor of olive in each bite. You get half the flavor. You see how it's looking a little bit soupy? Which is what happens when all those vegetables start to emit their juices, but that's okay. If you like it like this, you could go ahead and serve it. But I think it's a little bit better to thicken it with a cornstarch slurry. So I have 1 tablespoon of cornstarch in here mixed with 1 tablespoon of very cold water, and then just mix that up until it's nice and combined. You do need to make sure the water is cold or this will not activate. And then just pour it in and give it a whisk, and you'll see it will immediately start to thicken and have more of like a stew effect. It really works well, and you can add as much or as little as you like. I usually do a tablespoon, and I think it's perfect. And then the third thing I want you to do is add a tablespoon of butter. So the butter is gonna make the sauce really smooth and velvety, and it's also gonna impart a little bit more flavor. This is one of the things you see in a lot of French kitchens. When the sauce is ready, they add a little pat of butter just to finish it and make it a little bit more velvety and smooth. It works wonders. You really can do it on any sauce you like. All right, we are ready to plate this up. So I usually add 2 polenta cakes to a bowl, a few spoonfuls of that chicken cacciatore, and then I sprinkle the whole thing with a little bit of freshly chopped parsley. I hope you guys give this one a try and let me know what you think. It makes for a fabulous weekend entertaining idea or also a Sunday night dinner. All right, you guys, I'll see you back here next time. Until then, bye.